So I'm really excited to be connected to this organization, and I'll speak a little bit more to learning recently about some of the things that Alex and VNRC are doing. This is an opportunity for me to learn. Actually, I am a grad student. I'm in my second year of a master's program, and this is a career change for me. So I'm actually excited to be here and hear these presentations and learn from you all. Also, additionally, I will say Cecilia, Cecilia Danks, who's the principal investigator, couldn't be here today. But she all along has helped me understand that we're setting this up as a learning of what's going on with the towns and the town forests and your efforts to steward these public lands. So we're really here to learn from you. What are the challenges and the issues, so that we can help. Essentially, that's the mission. I'll touch quickly on the title here. We have carbon, COVID, and capacity, and all of these just came up in those three really great presentations. Couldn't have framed it up better than some of the things that were spoken to by Krista and Willow and Steve. But there are many, many more topics and issues and challenges that we're covering in the Town Forest Census, and I'll get into that in a minute. So just to start with, the main objective, this research is to gather key input and information across the entire state so that different organizations can do a better job of supporting you all, so that it can be more targeted, more effective. We know that all of us are dealing with navigating through climate change, balancing the housing and development pressures, thinking about our town forests as increasing recreation pressures and opportunities. I mean, that's wonderful. We want that for people in our towns, and also thinking about them as watersheds and flood mitigation. That's a big thing that's come up in the last couple of years, of course. So all of our efforts, we hope, will really lead to understanding the challenges and what's needed, so that state agencies and researchers can provide more targeted and effective means of resources and support. So the word census is really key. That was very intentional. And think about a census like the U.S. Census, right? The idea is to get this information, feedback from every town for every town forest in the entire state. So that's our mission. It's a big task, but it's really, really exciting to do that. And I'll talk in a minute about some previous work that we're building on. Also, like the U.S. Census, we're establishing this as replicable. So 2024 is going to be a baseline, but we're, instead of setting it up just the easiest way, we're setting it up in a way that will, when we hand this over to state agencies to reproduce in the future, it's a framework that is just kind of turnkey, and they can push the button again in a couple of years and monitor the issues that we've all been starting to realize are really our stewards of our town forests are faced with. It's important to think of it as a census because across the state, we have rural town forests, we have more urban town forests, small, large, they vary so much across the different regions. So and they're for different uses, recreation or watershed. Krista just talked about carbon sequestration. So we want to recognize that we don't really have an understanding of what's going on with town forests in the state of Vermont until, we get the voices and the perspectives from everyone. It's, I think, Bill, I think you alluded to this in the opening of the meeting. Now that we are seeing the great work for Act 59 and 30 by 30, we feel like this goes really hand in hand with that, so that we understand the inventory of town forests, the size of them, the total acreage, and actually part of our census survey is asking about the conservation status. And so I'm really excited about the fact that this is going to support the Act 59 initiative. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of topics in the survey. The survey is the biggest part of the census that's going out. And these are most of the topics that are included in the survey. I think there are a few other that didn't make it onto this list. So I'm showing this list to really spotlight that it's a broad scope. But at the same time, we had to figure out how to make it doable and not cumbersome for people to fill out and provide really meaningful information. So what folks are going to see with this survey when it comes out is a couple of questions or one question on each of these topics. For example, I think there's 2 questions on invasive species. It's not a full catalog of all of the invasive species. And certainly like, all of the great work that I think Willow, talked about in how they're managing invasive species, but it will get, a high level amount of information of what your town forest is doing in that particular topic. So I want to talk about the work that we're building on. So this map product that you see here was generated from previous researchers at UVM in the Spatial Analysis Lab. And they did an inventory of town forests first in 2007, and then they updated it in 2015. So what you're seeing here, it's hard to see the town forest on this map because it's a state scale. But there's these little green dots throughout that you see. Basically, what we did to facilitate sharing this information of the 2015 database is we plugged it into a GIS application and created this map. We just basically drew a 2-mile buffer around every town forest just for visibility purposes. So you can see here are the town forests as of 2015, as of the work that was done. And I talked to these researchers. This work was done very manually, very tediously. They recognize that it's likely not complete, and also it's about a decade old. So this is what we have so far as the inventory of town forests in the state. The yellow shading you see there is all the other lands that are in the protected land database. And so all of this is publicly available right now through the Vermont Open Geodata portal. And the culmination of that work is what is quoted in a lot of state literature that says that Vermont has 68,000 acres of town forest. This is the work that led to that to that conclusion. So here you see the breakdown of that work. It was a really inclusive definition of town forests. So it included parks, partially forested. The list has a couple of gravel pits. It has one of the swimming holes that I live near, and so it's very inclusive. And I think that was great as a foundation of our inventory of town forests. We're really honing in on that a little bit more now, as I'll talk to. The other piece of work that was done in the last couple of years is the governance analysis of town forests. So that's a great piece of work. And if anybody's not familiar with this work, I can certainly provide links to that information. And I will just say quickly also that a lot of this information you can get to through the Urban and Community Forestry Program's website. They're part of FPR. And they're one of our FPR and UCF are our collaborators on this project. So yeah. I'll just talk really quickly through this slide about all the people that are involved, but there on the left, you see the core research team I just mentioned. So those of us at UVM, as well as partnering with our state agencies. And then it was really important that we pulled together this advisory committee. A lot of names that you see here, a lot of different voices, perspectives, expertise. This was important so that we could really think about the topics that needed to be covered as a baseline this year. And they have just been wonderful as we've gotten going over the last 6 months to a year. They've really helped us out a lot. Couldn't say enough about them and their help. So very tangibly, here are our project deliverables, the baseline survey that we're sending out. I'll talk a little bit more about the exact status that we're in for that survey. The public database and interactive map, Bill talked about that in the intro. We're also building resources for the towns, and I definitely have to give a shout out here for UCF at this point. So Joanne Garton at UCF has pulled together the Town Forest Stewardship Toolkit, and this is the second phase of what UCF has done. They did a rec toolkit a few years ago, and now they have added to it and expanded it. So if you're not familiar with the UCF website and their town forest project and stewardship toolkit, definitely check that out. We'll have an economic report, and actually Cecilia is meeting right now with a group of students that we have recruited to work on this economic report. We're really excited to look at that. A big part of this project is networks and connections, just what you all are doing here through ABCC, where you're peer learning and sharing your experiences and your challenges and chiming in with each other about what's going well and what's not going well. So we want to be part of that whole big network of connections. As I mentioned, replicability of the census and an enduring infrastructure so that it doesn't have to be created from scratch again in another decade like we're doing now on top of the 2015 inventory. And then, of course, it'll all be published in peer-reviewed journals. So this is where you all can really come and help us and get engaged with this project. So just to talk quickly about exactly where we're at is we've done a pilot test of the census form. Some of you on this call have actually helped with that. And having the Conservation Commission chairs of, I think we've had at least 4 or 5 towns actually took our pilot survey was huge. Fresh perspective, the people actually doing this hard work of stewarding these important lands. So we have completed that. We're taking that feedback and fine-tuning the final census form. So that's been great. We decided to do this next phase that was the initial town outreach, and this is in progress, and this is where we could really use your help. I learned from connecting with Alex, I don't know, like a month or so ago, that ABCC and Alex in particular were also pulling together an inventory of town forests and conservation commissions. And so Alex, graciously has been collaborating with me, and we've been leveraging some of the information that he's pulled together. But this is a really daunting task. So what we've done is we've put together a very, very short, simple survey that has gone out to your town officials, town clerks, city managers, and such. In some cases, they've actually forwarded it to you all. So some of you have actually replied to this initial survey, and you know what I'm talking about. But this part is just basically to say, what do you have on your records that shows up as our definition of a town forest? And our definition is 5 acres or greater, approximately 75% forest cover, and municipally owned. And municipally owned means, doesn't necessarily have to mean that it has a conservation easement, but just owned by the town, city, water district, school district, and tribe. So we're trying to make sure that we're inclusive of all of that and just get that information from the towns, as well as a point of contact of the best person that could answer the census, who really knows what's going on in the forest, like all the people who spoke today. Yeah, so we're in the middle of that, and it's been daunting, but it's also been really, really informative and starting to really build these connections. And then socializing and network is a big part of this project, as we're doing here. I think you all can help with that. So I would say what you can do now is, be aware that the census form is going to come out in the next few weeks. Talk to your city officials and tell them that you find this incredibly valuable, important work, and you want them to be engaged. If they have seen the initial town outreach survey and they didn't know what to do with it, maybe you can help them. Or get back in touch with me and we can figure out what the next steps are. We really think that all of this is going to improve the data collection and just make this a much more robust body of work that is going to be really important for the state as we think about our conserved lands and climate change and all the other things that we're facing. So I think that's it. And I know we're really pressed for time, so I kind of rushed through it. If we don't have a lot of time for questions, this last slide here, I know this deck will go out, so please feel free to get in touch with me. That's why I'm here. I really want to work with you all. I learned a lot today, but I have a lot more to learn, and I think we all do. So really appreciate the hard work that everybody here is doing.
Great presentation, Julie, and thank you so much. Really inspiring, and I love the quote that you have, "The land teaches us how to live in harmony with all beings," by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Like I said, really inspiring.